There are a lot of unknowns surrounding Penn State's men's basketball program heading into this season. The Nittany Lions lost Lamar Stevens and Mike Watkins, who both helped build up the reputation of this program. That reputation was then put into question after former head coach Pat Chambers stepped down following internal investigations of inappropriate conduct. Despite a new coaching regime, the loss of recruits, and a roster overhaul, Penn State just keeps on climbing. Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Penn State Sports Night. I'm Charles Reinert here with Hunter Pitcoff and Lexy Leidlein. Considering everything that's gone on, are you guys surprised with the way that Penn State has looked to start off the year?
You know, Charles, honestly, I'm not surprised. We've come out with a few wins so far. We're now 2-1. I think that Penn State is coming off kind of a hot streak last year. Our win percentage was .67, which I think was pretty great. We were on our way to the NCAA tournament. First time since 2011, but sadly that was canceled due to COVID. I think with the new coaching staff and the loss of recruits, it kind of gave us a little bit of a setback, but I think so far we're doing pretty well.
I'll be honest, I'm probably the biggest Penn State pessimist that there is, especially involving this basketball team. So I'll admit it, I have actually been pleasantly surprised with how the Nittany Lions have looked this season. For one, I look at the turnover rate. They are top 15 in the country in steals per game. They turn those turnovers into touchdowns like the great Tom Izzo once said. They do a really good job getting in transition. All five guys hustling back to the other side of the basket. Even your center like John Harrah, hustling his butt down the court to get a layup and one. We saw against Seton Hall last game. And then, two, this team seems bought in. Despite all the outside noise, they are locked in and they're moving as one. And yeah, I mean, they're going to have a couple big games coming up. We're going to see what they're really about. But I think for the most part, they've looked pretty solid this year.
As some of you may know, Penn State named Jim Ferry the interim head coach after Chambers stepped down. What are some of the changes that Ferry has brought to the team?
Look, I really respect Jim Ferry here. He didn't come in here like, I'm just going to leave everything status quo. No, he came in here and he's made his presence felt. For one, I look at the starting lineup. Taking out Miles Dredd, that may have been an unpopular opinion, but putting in Isaiah Brockington makes so much more sense. He's a more dynamic player, especially with the ball in his hands. Miles Dredd's a one-trick pony. He shoots threes, and that's basically it. But Brockington, it adds another ball handler and just really spaces the floor. It makes Penn State a more fluid offense as a result. I respect that a lot. And like we said, this team is just absolutely locked in right now. They have great team camaraderie, and you can see that they're fighting for their coach out there, Jim Ferry. So he's already won that locker room over. We talked about, it was a little up in the air with Pat Chambers, but Jim Ferry, this is his shot. He has nothing to lose here. He can basically do whatever he wants. Maybe he gets another head coaching opportunity with Penn State. It could be with another team, of course. Who knows? But, I got to give him credit. He didn't just throw the season as a wash. And Penn State, at least for the bare minimum, they play hard.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, as the interim head coach, he's had a great start so far with the season starting off so well. I think Jamari Wheeler and John Harrah, being the two starting seniors in the starting five, have really taken control of this team and, like you said, set the tone that we're not going to listen to the outside noise of other people being downers. We're really just going to focus on the game at the time and really just show that we are the team to beat and that we are coming for the NCAA tournament.
As alluded to earlier, no more Stevens or Watkins means that some of the younger players have needed to step up in order to get some W's in the win column. Which ones appear to have taken that jump so far?
So far, I think Jamari Wheeler, senior point guard, I think he's really stepped up. Last year, he really showed off his speed and his ability to steal the ball from pretty much anybody. But I think as a senior, he needs to step up along with Pat Chambers being removed from the coaching staff. I think he and Seth Lundy have done a really good job of taking the ball to the hoop. Seth Lundy being not only a three-point shooter, but an in-the-paint shooter as well, getting those rebounds, just basically an all-over-the-floor monster. Also, Sam Sessoms, a transfer from Binghamton Jr., I think he's made his presence known on the Penn State team, and he's done a really good job of just, fitting in with the group.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up Jamari Wheeler. I mean, this guy was a dead space, a waste of space on the court last year when it came to offense. But first game, VMI dared him to shoot, and he drilled 4 threes, scored 18 points. That's as well we've ever seen Jamari Wheeler play on the offensive end. Defense has never been an issue with this guy. He's a dog on that end. He picks up a guy at 94 feet, and he makes it really hard for opposing point guards. We even saw last year when they beat Michigan State how hard he made on Cassius Winston, who's an NBA player right now. So Jamari Wheeler, the fact that he's expanded his game and has become at least a threat on the offensive end is a big deal. But Seth Lundy, he's only a sophomore, but he's won that team over. He is probably the leader of that team right now, despite being an underclassman. He even said it himself. He wants to be the next Lamar Stevens. Lamar's probably the greatest Penn State basketball player to ever put on the blue and white. But Seth Lundy here, I actually think he's a better shooter than Lamar Stevens, but he's a more fluid player on the court as well, is able to do more in between spaces. So I think the fact that he's really taking it upon himself, also averaging over a block and steal per game. So he's getting it done on both sides of the court. And while they did lose, we did see him hit some pretty big shots and not be afraid of the moment against Seton Hall. So you got to respect that. And Sam Sessions, like you said, this guy was a stud at Binghamton his first few years. One of the best scorers the Bearcats have ever had in that program. He could be that sixth man that comes off the bench and really lights it up. So Penn State, they got about 7-8 guys right now that they can rely on. And in college basketball, that's enough.
After losing in overtime to Seton Hall, Penn State will finish out its non-conference schedule against the 16th-ranked Virginia Tech Hokies in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. What did the Nittany Lions need to do in order to pull off the upset?
Well, we saw last game, they completely faltered against Seton Hall in that game. And the big issue to me when watching it was the pick-and-roll defense. It was terrible. I mean, this is stuff you learn in high school, Lexy. All you got to do is communicate. If people are telling each other whether to go over the screen, go on the screen, double team the ball handler, drop back, whatever it may be, you just got to communicate it. It's that simple. I don't blame coaching here. That's on the players because you got to know better than that. And their perimeter defense was just god-awful against Seton Hall. They were able to do whatever they wanted being the Pirates in the second half of that game. And that's why they were able to gain all that momentum, and Penn State was basically screwed in overtime. But now looking at Virginia Tech, this is a better team. The Hokies took down Villanova. They only held them to only 36% shooting from the three-point line. And that's not a terrible number, but for Villanova standards, that's bad. Penn State's not nearly as good of a three-point shooting team. If they're able to shrink the floor, Penn State is going to, I think, struggle a little bit. And I have to admit, I think the Hokies are going to take this one.
I think Penn State does a really good job of taking advantage of other teams' pick-and-roll defenses. You see John Hara setting that pick, rolling to the basket a lot of times. But yeah, I think on defense, we struggle. And I think going up against the number 16 team in the country, I think VCU and VMI were easier opponents. Seton Hall kind of gave us a little bit of a challenge, but going up against Virginia Tech, then we have the Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. I think this is going to be a really good test to see how good we actually are. Like you said, they beat number 3 Villanova, and that's a hard feat to do. So I think what Penn State really needs to do is, like you said, step up with a three-point game and really just talk on defense and make sure that we're not letting holes open that shouldn't even be there.
You both make some really good points, and Penn State certainly needs to play smart ball for all 40 minutes in order to take down the Hokies. But that'll do it for us here tonight on Penn State Sports Night. For Hunter Pitcoff and Lexy Leidlein, I'm Charles Reinert. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you for watching this edition of Penn State Sports Night. If you're a fan of our content, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more clips. Also, follow us on Twitter at PSSN TV and on Instagram at PSU Sports Night to keep up with all the action. For all my colleagues, we are Penn State Sports Night.